The fist connected with her face before she could scream. Emma Lawson crashed against the front gate, her arms wrapped tight around a trembling puppy pressed to her chest. She was 25 years old. She weighed barely 110 pounds, and her husband was already drawing back for the second blow. "You think you can embarrass me?" Marcus Lawson's voice thundered through the quiet suburban evening. "You think you can look at another man?" Across the street, Commander Cole Mitchell's hand froze on his mailbox. His canine partner, Storm, went rigid beside him. And everything he'd trained for, every instinct, every mission, screamed one word: intervene. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. Subscribe and follow this story to the very end. You won't believe what happens next. The second punch split Emma's lip. Blood sprayed across her white blouse, across the puppy's golden fur, across the perfectly manicured lawn that Marcus Lawson paid a service to maintain. The puppy, a 4-month-old Cocker Spaniel named Honey, yelped in terror but didn't try to escape. She pressed herself deeper into Emma's chest, as if she understood that her owner's arms were the only safe place left. "Please," Emma's voice came out broken. "Marcus, please. I wasn't looking at anyone."
I was just what?" Marcus grabbed her hair and yanked her head back. "Just making me look like a fool in front of the whole neighborhood?" "I was getting the mail, that's all. I was just getting the mail." "Liar." He threw her to the ground. Emma twisted at the last second, landing on her side to protect Honey from the impact. The puppy cried out anyway, feeling her owner's body slam against concrete. "You're always lying." Marcus stood over her, his expensive suit still pristine, his handsome face twisted into something monstrous. 3 years of marriage, and all you do is lie." Emma tried to crawl away, one arm still clutching Honey, the other scraping against rough pavement. Her elbow was bleeding, her cheek was swelling, but she'd learned long ago that showing pain only made him angrier. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Whatever I did, I'm sorry." "You're sorry?" Marcus laughed, a cold, terrible sound. "You're always sorry. Sorry doesn't mean anything anymore, Emma. Sorry is just another lie." He drew back his foot. Emma curled around Honey, making her body into a shield. The kick landed on her ribs. Air exploded from her lungs. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except hold on to the small, warm body trembling against her chest. Pathetic. Marcus straightened his tie. "Get up. Get inside. And if I see you talking to anyone, you'll wish you'd never been born." He walked back toward the house without looking back. Emma stayed on the ground, gasping, bleeding, holding a puppy who was crying as hard as she was. Across the street, Cole Mitchell had seen everything. His hands were shaking, not from fear. Cole hadn't felt fear in 14 years of combat operations. They were shaking from the effort of holding himself back. Storm pressed against his leg, a low growl building in the dog's chest. The Belgian Malinois was trained to respond to threats. Right now, every instinct in his body was screaming that the woman across the street was in danger. "Easy, boy." Cole's voice was barely a whisper. "Easy." But there was nothing easy about watching a man beat his wife in broad daylight. Nothing easy about standing still while a woman bled 20 feet away. Cole had killed men for less. In Afghanistan, in Syria, in places that didn't exist on any official record. He had ended lives with his bare hands, with knives, with weapons that would never be publicly acknowledged. He could cross that street in 3 seconds and put Marcus Lawson in the ground permanently. But he didn't move. Because Cole had also learned, in those same dark places, that rushing in got people killed. That emotion without intelligence was just another form of violence.
that saving someone the wrong way could destroy them just as surely as the threat itself. He watched Emma struggle to her feet, watched her clutch Honey against her chest, watched her stumble toward the house, shoulders hunched, spirit broken. And he made a decision. "Come on, Storm." Cole turned away from the street. "We've got work to do." Inside his house, Cole didn't bother with lights. He moved through the darkness with the ease of a man who had spent years operating without the luxury of illumination. Storm followed at his heels, still agitated, still sensing his handler's controlled fury. Cole sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. The screen glowed to life, casting harsh blue light across his face. 36 years old, short, dark brown hair with a military cut, steel blue eyes that had seen too much and forgotten none of it. A jaw set in a permanent clench that came from years of making impossible decisions. He typed a name into a search engine. Marcus Lawson. The results came fast. Real estate developer, net worth estimated at $12 million. Board member of 3 local charities. Golf buddy of the mayor. Friend of the police chief. Cole scrolled deeper. Campaign donations, political connections, a membership at the most exclusive country club in the county. On paper, Marcus Lawson was everything a successful American man should be. Wealthy, connected, respected. Cole had met men like him before, in boardrooms and bunkers, in mansions and military compounds. Men who believed their money made them untouchable. Men who confused wealth with worth, and power with permission. Those men always fell eventually. The question was how many people they destroyed before someone stopped them. Cole pulled up local news archives, domestic disturbance reports, police call logs. Nothing. He dug deeper. Court records, civil filings. Anything that might suggest Emma Lawson had tried to escape before. Still, nothing. Either Marcus was very careful, or the system was very broken. Cole suspected both. His phone buzzed. A text from an old teammate, now working private security. "Dinner tomorrow? Catch up on old times?" Cole typed back. "Rain check. Got a situation developing." The response came immediately. "Need backup?" Cole stared at the question for a long moment. In the field, backup was everything. No operator worked alone, no matter how skilled. The SEAL ethos was built on brotherhood, on the understanding that the man beside you would die before he let you fall. But this wasn't the field. This was a suburban neighborhood in North Carolina. This was a domestic violence situation that the local police had apparently ignored. This was a 25-year-old woman with a puppy and a monster for a husband. "Not yet," Cole typed, "but keep your phone close." He closed the laptop and sat in the darkness, thinking. Storm padded over and rested his head on Cole's knee. The dog's amber eyes looked up at him, questioning, waiting for orders. "I know, boy." Cole scratched behind Storm's ears. "I want to help her too. But we have to be smart about this." Storm whined softly. "If we rush in now, what happens? I assault him, I go to jail, and she's alone with him again tomorrow. His lawyers get me charged. His cop friends make sure I'm the bad guy." Cole shook his head. "That's not rescue. That's just emotion, with consequences." Storm's ears flattened. "We do this right. We gather evidence. We build a case that can't be ignored. We find allies, real allies, not cops on his payroll." Cole's voice hardened. "And when we move so hard and so fast that he never sees it coming. And he never, ever gets a chance to hurt her again." Storm's tail thumped once against the floor. "Good boy." Cole stood. "Now let's go meet our neighbor. Properly this time." The next morning came gray and cold, Cole walked Storm at exactly 7:15 a.m., the same time he'd walked him every morning since moving into the neighborhood 3 weeks ago. Routine was cover. Routine was camouflage. A man walking his dog was invisible in suburban America. He paused at his mailbox, taking his time, letting Storm sniff the grass. Across the street, the Lawson house stood silent. Expensive cars in the driveway. Perfect landscaping. No sign of the violence that had erupted there less than 12 hours ago. Cole waited. At 7:32, the front door opened. Emma emerged slowly, a leash in one hand, Honey tucked under her other arm. She wore a long-sleeved shirt despite the warming temperature, and oversized sunglasses that couldn't quite hide the swelling around her eye. She didn't look at Cole. She didn't look at anything except the ground directly in front of her feet. Cole started walking. Casual. Unhurried. Storm trotted beside him, alert but controlled. Their paths intersected at the corner of Emma's property line. "Morning." Cole's voice was warm, unthreatening. "Beautiful day for a walk." Emma flinched. The reaction was small, a tightening of her shoulders, a half step backward. But Cole saw it, recognized it. He'd seen the same flinch in hostages, in refugees, in people who had learned that human contact usually meant pain. "I'm sorry," Emma said automatically. "I can't. My husband doesn't like me talking to." "I'm Cole. Just moved in across the street." He gestured vaguely behind him, keeping his movements slow and visible. "This is Storm." Emma's eyes flickered to the Belgian Malinois. Something shifted in her face, a crack in the armor of fear. "He's beautiful." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Is he a police dog?" "Military, retired now, like me." Cole crouched down, making himself smaller, less threatening. "And who's this little one?" Emma hesitated. Her arms tightened around Honey. "It's okay," Cole said softly. "I've got treats in my pocket. Storm gets jealous if I don't share." For a moment, just a moment, something almost like a smile flickered across Emma's bruised face. "Her name is Honey." Emma knelt slowly, carefully, placing the puppy on the grass. "She's 4 months old. I got her from the shelter." Honey immediately bounded toward Storm, tail wagging, completely unafraid. Storm looked at Cole as if asking permission, then lowered his head to sniff the puppy's face. "Storm, gentle." The command was unnecessary. The battle-hardened canine was already letting Honey climb on his paws, his tail making slow, careful wags. "He's so patient with her," Emma's voice cracked. "Most big dogs don't. They don't understand that she's small." Storm's been through a lot. He knows what it's like to need protection. Cole kept his eyes on the dogs, giving Emma space to breathe. Sometimes the strongest ones are the gentlest. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly, Cole almost missed it. "I should go." Of course. Cole stood slowly. "But Emma..." She froze. "If you ever need anything, anything at all, I'm right across the street, day or night." Emma's sunglasses slipped slightly, and Cole caught a glimpse of the purple-black bruise spreading across her cheekbone. Her lip was still swollen, split where Marcus's fist had connected. "I'm fine," she said. The words were automatic, rehearsed, a script she'd recited 1,000 times. "I know." Cole's voice was steady, without judgment. "But if that ever changes, the offer stands." He whistled for Storm, and the Belgian Malinois reluctantly left Honey's side. Cole walked away without looking back, but he felt Emma's eyes on him the entire way home. Inside his house, Cole leaned against the door and let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Storm looked up at him, waiting. "I know, boy, I know." Cole ran a hand over his face. But we can't rush this. We have to do it right. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Cole answered. Mitchell. Commander Mitchell. The voice was female, professional, vaguely familiar. This is Detective Rachel Torres, Charlotte PD. I understand you recently moved to Meadowbrook Lane? Cole's instincts sharpened. That's right. I'd like to meet with you. Unofficially. There's a situation in your neighborhood that's been on my radar for a while. Let me guess. The Lawson house. Silence. Then, you've seen something. I've seen enough. Good. Torres's voice hardened. Because I've been trying to build a case against that man for 2 years, and every time I get close, someone shuts it down. What do you need from me? Evidence. Witnesses. Someone who can't be bought or scared off. A pause. I looked you up, Commander. 14 years Navy SEAL. Bronze Star. Silver Star. Classified operations that don't officially exist. You're not the kind of man who looks the other way. No, Cole said. I'm not. Then we need to talk. Tonight. There's a diner on 5th Street called Mabel's. I'll be in the back booth at 9. I'll be there. Torres hung up. Cole stared at his phone, processing what had just happened. A detective was working the case, had been working it for years. But someone with power kept shutting her down, someone with enough influence to make domestic violence complaints disappear. Marcus Lawson didn't just have money. He had protection. This wasn't just about saving one woman anymore. This was about dismantling a system designed to protect predators. Cole looked at Storm. Looks like we're not retired after all, boy. Storm's tail wagged. At 8:47 p.m., Cole walked into Mabel's diner. The place was half empty, populated by the late-night crowd. Truck drivers, night shift workers, people with nowhere better to be. The smell of coffee and fried food hung in the air. Cole spotted the back booth immediately. A woman sat alone, nursing a cup of coffee, her eyes scanning the door. Rachel Torres was mid-30s, fit, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore plain clothes, jeans and a leather jacket, but carried herself like a cop, alert, ready, assessing threats before they materialized. Cole slid into the booth across from her. Commander Mitchell. Detective Torres? They studied each other for a moment. Two professionals taking measure. You came alone, Torres observed. You asked me to. Most people bring backup to meetings with strangers. I'm not most people. Torres almost smiled. No, you're not. She pushed a folder across the table. Marcus Lawson, 41 years old, CEO of Lawson Development. Estimated net worth, $12 million, though I suspect the real number is higher. Cole opened the folder. Police reports, medical records, photographs. His jaw tightened. The photos showed Emma at various stages of injury. Black eyes, split lips, bruises in the shape of fingers around her throat. One image showed her arm in a cast. Fell down the stairs, according to the official report. How many times? Cole's voice was ice. Documented? 7 emergency room visits in 3 years. Actual incidents? Torres shook her head. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Emma stopped calling 911 after the first year. Why? Because when she called, Marcus's friends answered. Chief Bradley plays golf with him every Sunday. Half the department has received donations from Lawson Development. Torres's voice turned bitter. Every complaint gets lost. Every investigation gets redirected. The system that's supposed to protect her is the reason she can't escape. So why are you still fighting? Torres met his eyes. Because I grew up watching my mother hide bruises. Because I became a cop to stop men like Marcus Lawson. And because that woman across the street from you has nobody else. Cole closed the folder. What do you need? Evidence that can't be suppressed. Documentation that goes beyond local channels. And most importantly, Torres leaned forward. Someone who can protect Emma when she's ready to run. Because she will run eventually. They all do. And when she does, Marcus will try to kill her. You're sure about that? 3 weeks ago, I intercepted the conversation between Marcus and his lawyer. They were discussing contingency plans in case Emma became a problem. Torres's face hardened. I couldn't get it on record, but I know what I heard. Cole was silent for a long moment. You're asking me to go off book. I'm asking you to help me save a woman's life. The legal way. The right way.
But outside a system that's been corrupted beyond repair.
And if the legal way doesn't work? Torres held his gaze. Then we make sure she survives anyway. Cole nodded slowly. I'm in. I thought you might be. Torres pulled out a burner phone and slid it across the table. This is how we communicate. No digital trail. No records. Cole pocketed the phone. One more thing. Torres's voice dropped. Marcus is planning something. Emma's parents have been asking about her, trying to visit. He's been making excuses, but they're getting suspicious. So? So when controlling men feel their control slipping, they escalate. He might try to move her, isolate her completely, or end the problem permanently. Yes. Cole stood. Then we don't have much time. He walked out of the diner without looking back. At 10:17 p.m., Cole sat on his front porch, Storm at his feet, watching the Lawson house. The lights were on in the master bedroom. Shadows moved behind the curtains. Then the screaming started. Emma's voice, high and desperate. Marcus's voice, low and furious. The sounds of things breaking, glass, furniture, hope. Cole's hands curled into fists. Storm rose, hackles up, ready to move on command. Not yet. The words tasted like ash in Cole's mouth. Not yet. The screaming continued for 23 minutes. Then, silence. Cole waited through the night, watching for any sign of movement, any indication that Emma needed immediate intervention. At 3:47 a.m., the bedroom light finally went dark. Cole exhaled slowly. Tomorrow, he whispered to Storm. Tomorrow, we start building her way out. Storm pressed against his leg, understanding without words. Across the street, Emma Lawson lay awake in the darkness, honey curled against her chest, silent tears soaking into her pillow. She didn't know about the detective building a case. Didn't know about the Navy SEAL watching from across the street. Didn't know that for the first time in 3 years, someone was actually fighting for her. All she knew was the pain in her ribs and the monster sleeping beside her. But something had changed today. Something small. The man with the dog had looked at her like she was human, had spoken to her like she mattered, had offered help without demanding anything in return. It wasn't much. It wasn't rescue. But it was the first crack in 3 years of darkness. And sometimes, cracks were how the light got in. The next 3 days passed in a careful rhythm of observation and planning. Cole documented everything. The time Marcus left for work, the time he returned, the nights he came home drunk. The mornings Emma emerged with fresh bruises, poorly hidden beneath long sleeves and dark glasses. He photographed what he could from a distance, noted patterns, built a timeline. On the 4th morning, his burner phone buzzed. We have a problem. Torres's voice was tight. Marcus filed a complaint against you. Cole's hands stilled on his coffee mug. What kind of complaint? Harassment. He claims you've been watching his house, approaching his wife, making her uncomfortable. A pause. Chief Bradley called me personally. Told me to have a chat with the new neighbor who's causing trouble. He's getting ahead of it. He's smarter than I hoped. Men like him usually are. Torres exhaled. Cole, if you get arrested, I won't. You need to back off, at least visibly. Give him nothing to work with. And Emma? We find another way. But if you're in a cell, you can't help anyone. Cole ended the call and stood at his window, watching the Lawson house. Marcus was already outside, loading golf clubs into his car. He paused, turned, and looked directly at Cole's window. Then he smiled, slow, deliberate, victorious. Cole didn't react. Marcus's smile faltered slightly. He was used to intimidating people, used to fear and submission. This neighbor who watched without flinching was something new, something dangerous. Marcus got in his car and drove away. Cole waited exactly 15 minutes. Then he walked outside with Storm, heading toward the small park at the end of the street. He didn't look at the Lawson house, but as he passed, he heard a small voice. Wait! Emma was standing at her mailbox, honey clutched against her chest as always. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed, but there was something different in her posture today, something almost defiant. I heard what he did, she said quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. The complaint. I'm so sorry. I never told him you talked to me. He has cameras. He watches everything. I know. You should stay away from me. Emma's voice cracked. He'll destroy you. He destroys everyone who tries to help. Let him try. Emma stared at him. You don't understand. He has the police, the judges, everyone. Not everyone. Then who? Her laugh was bitter, broken. Who else is there? Me. Cole held her gaze. And a detective who's been fighting for you for 2 years. And anyone else who refuses to look away. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Why? You don't even know me. I know enough. Cole crouched down to pet Storm, keeping his voice low, aware of the cameras. I know you're 25 years old, and you've been living in hell. I know you protect that puppy like your life depends on it. I know you flinch at loud sounds and apologize for breathing. He looked up at her. And I know you deserve better than this. I can't, Emma's voice broke completely. I can't leave. I tried once. He found me in 2 days. Beat me so badly I couldn't walk for a week. She shook her head. He said next time he'd kill me, and then he'd kill Honey, and then he'd find my parents and kill them too. Did you believe him? Yes. The word was absolute, final. I believe him completely. Good. Emma looked confused. Believing him means you understand the stakes, Cole said. And understanding the stakes means you know this isn't something you can do alone. You need help. Real help. Professional help. There is no help. I told you. There's a detective named Rachel Torres. She's been building a case against Marcus for 2 years. The only thing she's missing is evidence that can't be suppressed. And a witness who's willing to testify. Emma's face went white. Testify? In court? Against Marcus? Eventually. But first, we document. We build. We create a case so airtight that not even his golf buddies can bury it. You don't understand. Emma stepped back. If he found out, if he even suspected. He won't. Not until we're ready. Not until you're safe. Safe? Emma laughed, a terrible, hollow sound. I haven't been safe in 3 years. I don't even remember what safe feels like. Then let me remind you. Honey squirmed in Emma's arms, reaching toward Storm. The Belgian Malinois stepped forward and touched his nose to the puppy's face. "She likes him," Emma whispered. "She has good instincts." Cole stood slowly. "I can't make you trust me, Emma. I can't make you believe that things can change. But I can promise you one thing." "What?" "If you decide to fight, if you decide to stop surviving and start living, I will be there, every step, until you're free." Emma stared at him for a long moment. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. "I need to think." "Take all the time you need." "What if I decide I can't do it? What if I'm too scared?" "Then I'll still be here, and the offer will still stand." Cole walked away without looking back. Emma watched him go, her heart pounding, her mind racing. For 3 years, she had accepted that this was her life, that there was no escape, that the monster she'd married would eventually kill her, and no one would stop him. Now, for the first time, someone was offering her a door. The question was whether she was brave enough to walk through it. That night, Marcus came home drunk. Emma heard his car in the driveway at 11:47 p.m. She'd been lying awake, as she always did, counting the minutes until he returned, measuring the danger by the sound of his engine, his footsteps, his voice. Tonight, every sound spelled trouble. "Emma!" The front door slammed. "Emma, get down here!" She tucked Honey under the blanket and whispered, "Stay quiet, baby. Stay hidden." Then she walked downstairs on shaking legs. Marcus was in the kitchen, pouring himself another drink. His tie was loose. His face was flushed. His eyes were murderous. "Did you have a nice chat today?" His voice was silk over steel. "With our friendly neighborhood stalker?" "I don't know what you're—" "Don't lie to me!" The glass shattered against the wall, inches from her head. Emma flinched, but didn't move. She'd learned that running made it worse. "I saw the footage, Emma. You were talking to him, smiling at him." Marcus moved closer, his breath hot and sour with whiskey. "What were you telling him? What lies were you spreading about me?" "Nothing, I swear. He was just walking his dog and—" "And what? You thought you'd make a new friend?" Marcus grabbed her jaw, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You don't have friends, Emma. You don't need friends. You have me." "I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean." He shoved her backward. She hit the counter hard, pain flaring through her spine. "You never mean anything, do you? You're just stupid, careless, worthless." "I'm sorry." "Stop saying sorry." He grabbed her hair and yanked. Emma cried out, but the sound seemed to excite him. "You want to talk to strangers? Fine. Let me give you something to talk about." The first blow landed on her stomach. Emma doubled over, gasping, but Marcus didn't stop. "This is what happens when you disrespect me." Another blow. "This is what happens when you smile at other men." Another. "This is what happens when you forget your place." Emma fell to her knees. Blood dripped from her split lip onto the pristine tile floor. From upstairs came a small, terrified bark. Marcus froze. "What was that?" "Nothing." Emma's voice was desperate. "It was nothing. Please." "Is that damn dog in the bedroom?" Marcus's face twisted with rage. "I told you to keep it in the garage. I told you 100 times." "She gets scared when I leave her alone. Please, Marcus, she's just a puppy." "She's a distraction." He started toward the stairs. "She's always been a distraction. Maybe it's time I got rid of her permanently." "No!" Emma launched herself at him, grabbing his arm with both hands. It was the first time in 3 years she'd physically resisted him. Marcus turned slowly, disbelief mixing with fury. "Did you just grab me?" "Please," Emma was sobbing now. "Please don't hurt her. She didn't do anything. She's innocent. Take it out on me."
Whatever you want. But please, please, don't hurt my dog." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. "You know what? You're right. She is innocent." He pulled Emma close, his grip bruising on her arms. "Which means she's the perfect way to punish you." "No. Every time you disobey me, every time you look at another man, talk to another man, breathe in the direction of another man, something happens to that dog. Do you understand?" Emma couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I said, "Do you understand?" "Yes." The word came out as a sob. "Yes, I understand." Good. Marcus released her abruptly, and she crumpled to the floor. "Now clean up this mess. I'm going to bed." He walked upstairs without looking back. Emma lay on the kitchen floor, bleeding, broken. But her mind was crystal clear for the first time in years. She couldn't keep living like this. She couldn't keep watching Honey pay the price for her fear. Something had to change. Someone had to stop him. And if no one else would do it, maybe, just maybe, she had to find the courage to stop him herself. At 2:34 a.m., Cole's burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mitchell." "It's Emma." Her voice was barely recognizable, thick with tears, rough with pain. "I need help." Cole was already reaching for his jacket. "What happened?" "He found out we talked. A sob cut her off. "He threatened Honey. He said every time I disobey him, he'll hurt her." "Are you injured?" "Yes, but I'll survive. I always survive." A pause. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep watching him destroy everything I love." "Then let me help you." "How? You said you needed evidence. I have nothing. He controls everything, the money, the phone, the car. I have nothing." Cole thought for a moment. "Do you have access to his office? His computer?" "Sometimes, when he's traveling." "Does he travel often?" "He has a business trip next week, 3 days in Miami." "That's our window." Cole's mind was already racing. "When he leaves, you document everything. Financial records, communications, anything that shows who he really is." "And if I get caught?" "You won't, because you won't be alone." Silence. Then, "You'd really do that? Risk everything for someone you barely know?" "I spent 14 years risking my life for strangers. This isn't any different." "It feels different." "It is different, because this time I'm not following orders. I'm following my conscience." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "Okay." "Okay what?" "Okay, I'll do it. I'll help you build the case." Her voice strengthened slightly. "But you have to promise me something." "Name it." "If something happens to me, if he finds out and I don't make it, you'll take care of Honey. You won't let him hurt her." Cole's throat tightened. "Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me." "I promise. But Emma, I'm also promising you something else." "What?" "You're going to survive this. You're going to testify. You're going to watch him get taken away in handcuffs, and you're going to live the rest of your life without ever being afraid again." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." The call ended. Cole sat in the darkness, storm at his feet, planning the operation that would change everything. Marcus Lawson had money. He had connections. He had the entire local power structure in his pocket. But Cole had something Marcus didn't. He had a team. He had training. And he had a woman who had finally found the courage to fight back. The next 5 days were a master class in covert operations.
Torres provided surveillance equipment, hidden cameras small enough to fit inside a button, audio recorders that could be planted anywhere. She also provided legal guidance, ensuring that everything they gathered would be admissible in federal court. Federal? Cole had asked during their second meeting. Local courts are compromised. Marcus's lawyer has every judge in the county on speed dial. But federal judges? Torres smiled grimly. They don't play golf at the same country club. Cole passed the equipment to Emma during their carefully orchestrated, accidental meetings. Brief exchanges during dog walks, quick conversations at the mailbox, moments stolen whenever Marcus's cameras were in their blind spots. "I found something," Emma whispered during their third exchange. "Bank accounts. Offshore. He's been hiding money for years." "How much?" "Millions, maybe more." "There are shell companies, transfers. I don't understand all of it, but it looks bad." "Can you photograph the documents?" "I already did." Emma's hands trembled as she passed him a tiny memory card. "Cole, if this is what I think it is, then it's not just domestic abuse anymore. It's financial crimes, potentially wire fraud, maybe even money laundering." "Can they arrest him for that?" "They can lock him away for 20 years. Emma's eyes widened. 20 years? Maybe more. Federal sentences don't have parole. For the first time since Cole had met her, Emma smiled. It was small. It was fragile. But it was real. He'd never hurt anyone again. That's the plan. On the 6th day, Marcus announced his Miami trip. 3 days, he told Emma at breakfast, not looking up from his phone. "Don't do anything stupid while I'm gone." "I won't." "And keep that damn dog out of my office. If I find one hair on my desk—" "I understand." Marcus left that afternoon. Emma waited 3 hours. Then she called Cole. "He's gone. Storm and I are coming over." 15 minutes later, they were inside the Lawson house for the first time. Cole moved through the rooms methodically, identifying cameras, testing blind spots, mapping escape routes. Storm padded beside him, nose working, cataloging scents. "He has cameras in every room." Emma's voice was small. "Except the basement and the office. He thinks no one can get in there." "Can you?" "I know the codes. He made me memorize them in case of emergency." "Show me." The office was exactly what Cole expected. Expensive furniture, leather chairs, a massive desk covered in papers Marcus thought no one would ever see. Cole photographed everything. Financial statements, contracts, communications with lawyers and politicians and business partners who probably didn't know their names were being recorded. One folder caught his attention. "Emma, come look at this." She moved beside him, and her face went pale. "Oh my God." It was a file labeled Insurance. Inside were photographs. Photographs of Emma. Bloody. Beaten. Unconscious. Some looked staged. Others looked real. "What is this?" Cole's voice was ice. "He takes pictures." Emma's voice was hollow. "After bad nights. He says it's to remind me what happens when I disobey. But I didn't know he kept them all." "There's more." Cole flipped through the file. Notes. Dates. Descriptions. Emma scanned the pages, and her face crumpled. "He's documenting everything. Every time he hurt me. Every injury. He wrote it down like a journal." "He's building leverage." Cole's jaw tightened. "If you ever tried to accuse him, he could claim these photos are fake, stage a narrative, make you look like the aggressor." "He thought of everything." "Not everything." Cole photographed every page. He thought he was building protection. Instead, he just built his own confession. They worked for 3 more hours, gathering evidence, documenting crimes, building a case that would bring Marcus Lawson's empire crashing down. By midnight, They had enough. What happens now? Emma asked, exhausted but alert, Honey sleeping in her arms. Now we wait for him to come home. We wait for the right moment, and then we move. And if he finds out before then? He won't. But if he does? Cole met her eyes. Then I'll be there. Whatever happens, I'll be there. Emma nodded slowly. I believe you, she said. And for the first time in 3 years, she actually did. The call came at 4:17 a.m. on the second day of Marcus's trip. Torres's voice was urgent. We have a problem. Cole was instantly awake. What? Marcus cut his trip short. He's on a flight back right now, landing in 3 hours. Why? I don't know, but my source at the airport says he's traveling with 2 men. Security types, the kind you hire when you're expecting trouble. Cole's blood went cold. He knows. Maybe. Or maybe he's just paranoid. Either way, Emma needs to get out. Now. I'll handle it. Cole was across the street in 4 minutes. The Lawson house was dark, quiet. Emma's bedroom light was off. He knocked on the back door. 3 short, 2 long. The signal they'd agreed on. 30 seconds. Nothing. Cole tried again. The door opened. Emma stood there in darkness. Honey clutched to her chest, her face pale with terror. He called me, she whispered. 20 minutes ago. He knows, Cole. He knows everything. What did he say? He said... Her voice broke. He said he's coming home to deal with the problem. And when he's done with me, he's coming for you. Cole grabbed her arm. We're leaving, right now. I can't. If I run... If you stay, you die. Cole's voice was absolute. He's bringing security. This isn't punishment anymore, Emma. This is elimination. Emma's eyes went wide. Move. Now. They ran. Cole's truck tore through the empty streets, headlights cutting through darkness. Emma sat in the passenger seat, Honey pressed against her chest, her whole body trembling. Storm positioned himself between her and the door, his amber eyes locked on the road behind them. Where are we going? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Safe house. Torres arranged it weeks ago, just in case. He'll find me. He always finds me. Not this time. Cole took a sharp turn, checking the rearview mirror. No headlights behind them. Not yet. How did he know? Emma's tears fell freely now. We were so careful, Someone talked. Or he had surveillance we didn't know about. Cole's jaw tightened. It doesn't matter now. What matters is getting you somewhere he can't reach. His burner phone buzzed. He answered on speaker. Tell me you have her. Torres's voice was tight with tension. I have her. We're en route. ETA? 20 minutes. Make it 15. I just got word. Marcus's plane landed early. He's already on the ground. Emma made a small sound of terror. Copy that. Cole pressed the accelerator harder. Any word on the security team? 2 men, former military contractors. Both have records. Assault, intimidation. One suspected homicide that never went to trial. Names? Victor Crane and Daniel Moss. They work for a private firm that specializes in making problems disappear. For who? Anyone who can pay. And Marcus Lawson can definitely pay. Cole ended the call and glanced at Emma. I know those names, she whispered. Marcus mentioned them once. He said if I ever tried to leave again, he'd send them to bring me back. They won't touch you. You don't know that. I know exactly what they are, and I know exactly how to handle them. They're killers. So am I. Emma stared at him. Cole kept his eyes on the road. The difference is, I only kill people who deserve it. And I've never once hurt someone who couldn't fight back. The safe house was a small cabin on the outskirts of the county, surrounded by woods, accessible only by a single dirt road. Torres was waiting at the door when they arrived. "Inside, now!" Cole guided Emma through the entrance, Storm at their heels. The cabin was sparse but secure. Reinforced windows, multiple exit points, communication equipment on the kitchen table. "How long do we have?" Cole asked. "Hard to say. If Marcus goes to the house first, maybe a few hours. If he has people tracking her phone—" "I left it," Emma's voice cracked. "I left everything, just like Cole told me." "Good." Torres handed her a blanket. "Then we have time. Not much, but enough." Emma sank onto the couch, wrapping herself and Honey in the blanket. The puppy whimpered softly, sensing her owner's distress. "What happens now?" Emma asked. "Now we accelerate the plan." Torres pulled out a laptop. "The evidence you gathered is solid. Financial crimes, witness intimidation, potential conspiracy. I've already forwarded everything to a federal prosecutor I trust." "How long until they can act?" "Officially, maybe 48 hours for an arrest warrant." "And unofficially?" Torres hesitated. "Unofficially, Marcus Lawson has friends in places we haven't mapped yet. Every time I've tried to move against him, someone tips him off. Someone inside the system. Then we go around the system." Cole moved to the window, scanning the tree line. "We put everything in front of the media. Every document, every photo, every piece of evidence. Make it impossible to bury. If we do that before the arrest, we risk what? Him getting a heads up and running? He's already running." Cole turned to face her. "He cut his trip short. He hired killers. He's not waiting for due process anymore, Torres. He's in elimination mode." "You're talking about blowing up the entire investigation." "I'm talking about saving her life." Torres was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do it." The next 3 hours were controlled chaos. Torres worked the phones, coordinating with federal contacts, building a coalition of allies who couldn't be bought or intimidated. Cole secured the perimeter, planting motion sensors in the woods, establishing sightlines, preparing for the confrontation he knew was coming. And Emma did something she'd never done in 3 years of marriage. She started to hope. "Can I help?" she asked, approaching Torres at the kitchen table. "There must be something I can do." Torres looked up, surprised. "Are you sure? After everything?" "I spent 3 years being useless, being controlled, being told I couldn't do anything without his permission." Emma's voice strengthened. "I want to help take him down." Torres smiled, the first real smile Emma had seen from her. "Then sit down, because I need someone who knows Marcus Lawson better than anyone. Someone who can tell me exactly how he thinks." Emma sat. For the next 2 hours, she talked about Marcus's routines, his paranoia, his pressure points, the people he trusted and the ones he feared, the deals he'd bragged about, and the secrets he'd let slip when he was drunk. Torres documented everything, building a psychological profile that was more detailed than any law enforcement database. "He's afraid of being exposed," Emma said finally. "Everything he does, the money, the connections, the control, it's all about maintaining the image. The successful businessman, the community leader, the perfect husband. So if we shatter the image, he'll panic, he'll make mistakes." Emma paused. "But he'll also become more dangerous. When Marcus feels cornered, he doesn't surrender. He attacks. We're counting on that." Cole entered from the back door, Storm at his side. "Men who attack make mistakes. Men who make mistakes get caught. Or people get hurt. Not on my watch." Dawn was breaking when Cole's burner phone buzzed with an unknown number. He answered. "Mitchell, You made a mistake, soldier boy. Cole's blood went cold. Marcus Lawson's voice was calm, controlled, the voice of a man who believed he was still in charge. You should have minded your own business. You should have stayed in your lane. Now you've involved yourself in something you can't win. I've won plenty of things people said I couldn't. This is different. This is my town, my world. You're just a guest here, and your welcome has expired.
Is that a threat?
It's a fact. I know where you live. I know about your little dog. I know about the detective who's been feeding you information. Marcus chuckled softly. Did you really think I wouldn't find out about your meetings at Mabel's diner? Cole's hand tightened on the phone, but his voice remained steady. I think you're scared. I think you've never faced someone you couldn't buy or intimidate. And I think you're finally realizing that your money can't save you. My money can do plenty. Marcus's voice hardened. But this isn't about money anymore. This is about respect. This is about teaching you and my wife what happens when people don't know their place. Where are you, Marcus? Closer than you think. The line went dead. Cole turned to Torres. He has surveillance on us. He knows about the diner, about our meetings. Someone's feeding him information. Someone inside the department. Can you find out who? I can try, but it'll take time. We don't have time. Motion sensors blared. Storm was on his feet instantly, hackles raised, a low growl building in his chest. Cole moved to the window, weapon drawn. 2 vehicles, coming up the access road. How did they find us? Torres was already reaching for her phone. Doesn't matter. Get Emma to the back room, now. Cole? Emma's voice was terrified. Go, take Honey. Don't come out until I tell you. Emma grabbed the puppy and ran, Torres guiding her toward the reinforced back room. Cole positioned himself at the front window, Storm beside him. The vehicle stopped 100 yards from the cabin. 3 men emerged. Marcus Lawson, and the 2 contractors, Crane and Moss. They stood there, waiting, making no move to approach. Cole's phone buzzed. Come outside, soldier boy. Let's talk like men. I'm comfortable where I am. I'm sure you are. But here's the thing. Marcus's voice dropped to something dark. If you don't come out in the next 60 seconds, my friends are going to start shooting. And they won't stop until everyone in that cabin is dead. You're bluffing. Am I? Marcus laughed. Victor, show 'em we're serious. One of the contractors raised a weapon and fired. The bullet tore through the cabin's front window, missing Cole's head by inches. Storm barked furiously. 50 seconds. Marcus's voice was ice. 49. Cole's mind raced. 3 armed men, 1 fortified position, a woman and a detective in the back room, a dog trained for combat, but facing impossible odds. 43. He could fight. He could probably take down 1, maybe 2. But the 3rd would reach Emma, would finish what Marcus had started 3 years ago. 37. Or he could surrender, buy time, trust that Torres's contacts would arrive before Marcus could do his worst. 31. Neither option was good, but only one kept Emma alive. Cole holstered his weapon. Storm, stand down. The Belgian Malinois whined in protest, but obeyed. Cole walked to the front door. Marcus Lawson smiled as Cole emerged from the cabin, hands raised, unarmed. Smart choice. This isn't over. No, but it's about to be. Marcus gestured to his contractors. Search the cabin. Bring out my wife. She stays inside. That's not how this works. Marcus stepped closer, his expensive shoes crunching on gravel. You see, you made a fundamental error, soldier boy. You thought this was a fair fight. You thought, because you have training and muscles and a sense of justice, you could beat me. I still can. No, you can't. Marcus's eyes were cold. Because I don't fight fair. I never have. I win because I'm willing to do things you won't do. Because I have no limits, no rules, no conscience. The contractors moved toward the cabin. Victor, Daniel, bring her out. And if the detective gives you any trouble, Marcus smiled. Handle it. Wait, everyone froze. Emma stepped out of the cabin. She was holding Honey with one arm. The other arm was behind her back. Emma. Marcus's voice shifted to something sickeningly sweet. There you are, darling. Did you really think you could run from me? I'm done running. Oh, sweetheart, Marcus laughed. You're done when I say you're done. No. Emma's voice was stronger than Cole had ever heard it. I'm done. I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done being your prisoner. I'm done being afraid of you. Afraid? Marcus's face darkened. You should be afraid. Do you have any idea what I'm going to do to you? To that stupid dog? To your new boyfriend over there? I know exactly what you're capable of. Emma brought her other arm forward. She was holding a gun. Cole recognized it immediately. His backup weapon. The one he'd left in the safe room. The one Torres must have given her. Emma, Marcus's voice faltered for the first time. Put that down. No. You won't shoot me. You don't have the courage. 3 years ago you were right. I didn't have the courage for anything. Emma's hand trembled, but her aim stayed true. But you took everything from me. My job, my friends, my family, my self-respect. You beat me. You degraded me. You threatened to kill me and everyone I love. Emma, you made me believe I was worthless, that I deserved every bruise, every broken bone, every night crying on the floor. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice didn't waver. But I'm not worthless. I'm not nothing. And I will never let you hurt me again. Victor, Daniel, take her down. The contractors raised their weapons. But they never fired. Because Storm launched. 75 pounds of trained military canine hit Victor Crane at full speed. Teeth finding flesh. Momentum driving the man to the ground. Cole moved simultaneously, closing the distance to Daniel Moss in 2 strides, disarming him with a technique he'd used 100 times, in places that didn't exist on any map. Moss went down hard. He didn't get up. Marcus Lawson stood alone, his contractors neutralized, his wife pointing a gun at his chest. This is insane, his voice cracked. You're all insane. Do you have any idea who I am? I know exactly who you are. Emma's tears fell faster, but her aim never moved. You're the monster who destroyed my life. You're the coward who beat his wife because it made him feel powerful. You're the fraud who pretends to be a good man while hurting everyone around him. Emma, listen to me. I'm done listening to you. Emma pulled back the hammer. I'm done doing everything you tell me. I'm done being afraid. You won't shoot, won't I? You're not a killer. No. Emma's voice dropped to something quiet, something final. I'm not. But I'm also not the broken woman you tried to create. I'm stronger than you ever believed, and I will never, ever let you hurt anyone again. Sirens, distant at first, then growing louder. Torres emerged from the cabin, phone in hand. Federal agents, 5 minutes out. Marcus's face went white. You called them. We called them before you ever arrived. Cole approached Emma slowly, carefully. The moment you threatened us on the phone, we had enough for conspiracy to commit murder. Combined with everything else, the financial crimes, the abuse documentation, the evidence Emma gathered, you're looking at multiple life sentences. My lawyers can't help you. Not this time. Torres stepped forward, handcuffs ready. Marcus Lawson, you're under arrest for domestic assault, conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. This isn't happening. Marcus stumbled backward. This can't be happening. It's happening. Cole gently took the gun from Emma's trembling hands. It's been happening since the day you decided to hurt someone who couldn't fight back. You just didn't know it yet. Federal vehicles poured up the access road. Agents in tactical gear swarmed the property, securing the contractors, surrounding Marcus Lawson. "You can't do this!" Marcus's voice rose to a scream. "I know people! I have friends in high places! You'll never make this stick!" "Sir," a federal agent stepped forward, face expressionless. "Please come with us." They led him away in handcuffs. Marcus Lawson, real estate mogul, community leader, perfect husband, was finally exposed for what he truly was. Emma watched him go. Her legs gave out. Cole caught her before she hit the ground. "I got you." He held her as she sobbed. "I got you. It's over. It's finally over." "Is it?" Emma looked up at him, tears streaming. "Is it really over?" "He can't hurt you anymore. He can't hurt anyone." "I pointed a gun at him. I almost—" "You did what you had to do. You were brave when it mattered." "I was terrified." "That's what bravery is." Cole stroked her hair gently. "Doing the right thing even when you're terrified." Honey squirmed between them, licking Emma's face. Storm approached and sat at their feet, finally at ease. Torres walked over, holstering her weapon. "Federal prosecutor wants a statement, but it can wait until you're ready." Emma wiped her eyes. "I'm ready." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Emma straightened slowly, still leaning on Cole for support. "I spent 3 years being silent. 3 years letting him control my story. Now I'm going to tell the truth. Every ugly, painful detail. And I'm going to watch him lose everything. Even if it's hard, especially if it's hard." Emma looked at the federal vehicles disappearing down the access road. "He took my voice. Now I'm taking it back." The statement took 4 hours. Emma sat in a secure facility, federal agents and prosecutors listening as she recounted everything. Every beating, every threat, every moment of terror she'd endured for 3 years. Cole waited outside, Storm at his feet. Torres joined him after the first hour. "She's incredible," Torres said quietly. "I've seen abuse survivors shut down under questioning, recant, protect their abusers out of fear. But she's finally free." Cole watched the door. For the first time in 3 years, she's finally free to be angry. "You did good, Mitchell. I know it wasn't easy. Watching, waiting, not rushing in." "It was the hardest thing I've ever done." "Harder than combat?" "Combat is simple. You identify the threat, you neutralize it. This," Cole shook his head, "this required patience, trust, believing that doing things the right way would actually work." "Do you believe it now?" Cole thought about Emma inside that room, finally telling her story. Thought about Marcus Lawson in federal custody, facing charges that would keep him locked away for decades. Thought about Honey, safe and loved, no longer a tool for torture. "Yeah," he said finally. "I believe it now." At midnight, Emma emerged from the facility. She looked exhausted, drained, but also somehow lighter, as if a weight she'd carried for years had finally lifted. "How do you feel?" Cole asked. "Empty." Emma managed a small smile, but the good kind of empty. Like I finally let go of something that was poisoning me. "What happens now?" "They want me to testify at the trial. All of it. The abuse, the financial crimes, the contractors, everything." "Will you?" "Yes." Emma looked at him with something new in her eyes. Something like strength. "I'll testify 100 times if that's what it takes. He stole 3 years of my life. Now I'm going to make sure he spends the rest of his paying for it." Cole nodded. "Come on. Let's get you somewhere safe. Somewhere you can actually rest." They walked out into the night air together. Storm pressed against Emma's side. Honey was asleep in her arms. Two broken souls finding their way forward. Two dogs who had taught their humans what loyalty really meant. The battle wasn't over. The trial would be long. The recovery would be longer. But for the first time in 3 years, Emma Lawson was walking toward something instead of running away. And she wasn't walking alone. The trial began 6 weeks after the arrest. Emma hadn't slept in 3 days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face. Not the monster who'd beaten her, but the charming man she'd married. The man who'd promised to love and protect her. The man who'd slowly, methodically, destroyed everything she was. "You don't have to do this." Cole sat across from her at the kitchen table of the safe house where she'd been staying. "There's enough evidence without your testimony." "No." Emma's voice was hoarse but firm. "I need to do this. For me, for every woman he'll never be able to hurt again. It's going to be brutal. His lawyers will try to destroy me, I know." Emma looked up, and Cole saw something in her eyes that hadn't been there 6 weeks ago. Steel. "Let them try." Storm patted over and rested his head on her knee. Honey was curled in her lap, the puppy's presence a constant comfort. "I used to think I was weak," Emma said quietly, stroking Honey's fur. "He told me every day, 'You're weak, you're stupid, you're nothing without me.'" She shook her head slowly. "But weak people don't survive 3 years of hell. Weak people don't walk into federal court and face their abuser. Weak people don't—" Her voice broke. Cole reached across the table and took her hand. "You're the strongest person I've ever met, Emma. And I've met people who survive things you can't imagine." "I'm terrified." "I know." "What if I freeze? What if I see him and I can't—" "Then you look at me, you find me in that courtroom, and you remember why you're doing this. Not for the prosecution, not for the case. For every night you spent on the floor. For every bruise you tried to hide. For every moment he made you feel like you were nothing." Emma's tears fell, but she didn't wipe them away. "Will you be there?" "Every second. Storm and I aren't going anywhere." The federal courthouse was a fortress of marble and security. Cole arrived early, Storm at his side in his official service dog vest. Torres had pulled strings to get the canine approved for courtroom presence, emotional support for the primary witness. The hallways were crowded with reporters, cameras, spectators hungry for a glimpse of the scandal that had consumed local news for weeks. Real estate mogul accused of years of abuse. Federal prosecutors reveal pattern of violence and corruption. Wife to testify against husband in landmark case. Cole ignored them all, positioning himself in the front row of the gallery, directly behind the prosecution table. Torres slid into the seat beside him. "How is she?" "Ready, scared, determined." "The defense is going to come hard. Marcus hired the best lawyers money can buy." "I figured. They've already filed motions to suppress the financial evidence, claiming illegal search." "Will it work?" "Prosecutor doesn't think so, but they're throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks." The doors opened. Emma walked in. She was wearing a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked younger than 25, fragile, almost delicate. But her eyes told a different story. She scanned the courtroom, found Cole, and something in her posture shifted. Straightened, like she'd found an anchor in a storm. She took her seat at the prosecution table. Across the aisle, the defense team shuffled papers, murmured strategies, projected confidence. And then Marcus Lawson entered. He was wearing a tailored suit, charcoal gray, designer label. His hair was perfectly styled. His face was calm, almost serene, as if he were attending a business meeting rather than fighting for his freedom. He looked at Emma, smiled. Emma's hands trembled, but she didn't look away. All rise. The judge entered, Honorable Patricia Chen, 62 years old, known for her no-nonsense approach and immunity to political pressure. Be seated. We are here for the United States of America versus Marcus David Lawson. Prosecution, are you ready to proceed? Yes, Your Honor. Defense? Ready, Your Honor. Then let's begin. The prosecution's opening was methodical, devastating. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Torres, no relation to Rachel, laid out the case with surgical precision. 3 years of documented abuse, financial crimes totaling over $8 million, conspiracy to commit murder when Emma tried to escape. This is not a case of he said, she said, Torres told the jury. This is a case backed by medical records, financial documents, recorded threats, and the testimony of multiple witnesses who watched Marcus Lawson systematically destroy his wife while presenting himself as a pillar of the community. He paused, letting the words sink in. The defense will try to paint Mrs. Lawson as unstable, as a liar, as someone who fabricated these allegations for money or attention. But the evidence will show that Emma Lawson is not a liar. She is a survivor. And today, for the first time in 3 years, she will tell you her truth. The defense's opening was exactly what Cole expected. Marcus's lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Charles Hartford, approached the jury with practiced sincerity. Ladies and gentlemen, you will hear many things in this courtroom. Allegations, accusations, emotional testimony designed to make you feel rather than think. He gestured toward Marcus, who had arranged his face into an expression of wounded innocence. But I ask you to remember that in this country, a man is innocent until proven guilty. Marcus Lawson is a successful businessman, a philanthropist, a man who has contributed millions to local charities. Does that sound like a monster to you? Hartford shook his head sadly. The truth is, this case is about a marriage that failed, about a wife who felt neglected and sought attention in destructive ways, about accusations that have been manipulated by overzealous prosecutors seeking headlines. Objection! The prosecutor was on his feet. Sustained. Mr. Hartford, save the characterizations for closing arguments. Of course, Your Honor. Hartford smiled smoothly. My point is simply this. Don't be swayed by emotion. Look at the facts. And when you do, you'll see that Marcus Lawson is not a criminal. He's a victim of circumstance, of media frenzy, and of a wife who wanted revenge. Cole's hands curled into fists. Torres touched his arm. Steady. It's just theater. It's lies. I know, but Emma's going to destroy every one of them. The prosecution called its first witness, Dr. Rebecca Martinez, emergency room physician at Charlotte Memorial Hospital. Dr. Martinez, how many times did you treat Emma Lawson over the past 3 years? 7 times that I personally handled. There may have been additional visits when I wasn't on shift. And what were the nature of her injuries? Contusions, lacerations, fractured ribs on 2 occasions, a dislocated shoulder, injuries to her face and throat consistent with strangulation. Did Mrs. Lawson ever explain how these injuries occurred? She always had explanations. Fell down the stairs, walked into a door, slipped in the shower. Dr. Martinez paused. The same explanations I've heard from hundreds of abuse victims over my 20 years in emergency medicine. Did you believe her explanations? No. The injury patterns were inconsistent with accidental trauma. They were consistent with assault. Did you report your suspicions? I tried. I filed reports with hospital administration. I contacted local police. Dr. Martinez's voice hardened. Nothing was ever done. Every inquiry was closed within days. Why do you think that was? Objection. Speculation. Sustained. The prosecutor moved on, but the point had been made. The system had failed Emma Lawson, but it wasn't going to fail her today. The second witness was Detective Rachel Torres. Detective, how long have you been investigating Marcus Lawson? 2.5 years? And what prompted your investigation? I responded to a domestic disturbance call at the Lawson residence in March of the previous year. When I arrived, Emma Lawson had visible injuries, a black eye, bruises on her arms, what appeared to be finger marks around her throat. What happened when you tried to file a report? I was told to drop it. Chief Bradley personally called me into his office and explained that Marcus Lawson was a respected member of the community, that the incident was a misunderstanding, that pursuing it would be inadvisable. Did you drop it? No. Torres's voice was firm. I continued investigating on my own time, documenting patterns, building a case, waiting for an opportunity to act. And did that opportunity come? It did. When Commander Cole Mitchell moved into the neighborhood and witnessed Marcus Lawson assaulting his wife in broad daylight. Objection. Hearsay. Commander Mitchell will testify to what he witnessed personally, Your Honor. Overruled. Continue. Torres described everything. The surveillance, the evidence gathering, the night they'd extracted Emma from the house. The defense's cross-examination was vicious. Detective Torres, isn't it true that you've had personal issues with your superiors? That you've been passed over for promotion multiple times? I've had disagreements with superiors who wanted me to ignore abuse. Isn't it possible that you pursued this case not out of concern for Mrs. Lawson, but out of a desire to embarrass the department? To prove your critics wrong? I pursued this case because a woman was being beaten nearly to death and no one else would help her. Isn't it true that you violated department protocols in your investigation? I followed the law. The protocols were designed to protect abusers, not victims. Move to strike, Your Honor. Stricken. Detective Torres, please confine your answers to the questions asked. But the damage was done. The jury had heard exactly what kind of system Marcus Lawson had been hiding behind. The third witness was Cole Mitchell. He took the stand in his Navy dress uniform, a calculated choice by the prosecution. The jury needed to see not just a witness, but a decorated American hero. Commander Mitchell, please describe what you witnessed on the evening of September 14th. Cole kept his voice steady, factual, military precise. I was retrieving my mail at approximately 6:30 p.m. I heard screaming from across the street. I observed a man, later identified as Marcus Lawson, dragging a woman by her hair through the front gate of their property. What happened next? He threw her to the ground. She was holding the small dog, trying to protect it with her body. He kicked her repeatedly. The dog tried to intervene, and he kicked the dog as well. How did you react? I wanted to intervene immediately. My training screamed at me to act. Cole paused. But I also knew that rushing in could make things worse, could give him grounds to claim I was the aggressor, could put Mrs. Lawson in more danger when I wasn't there. So what did you do? I observed. I documented. I contacted law enforcement, specifically Detective Torres, who I learned had been investigating Lawson for years. And then? We built a case. We gathered evidence. We waited for the right moment to extract Mrs. Lawson safely and ensure her husband could never hurt her again. The defense's cross-examination was almost gentle. Hartford knew better than to attack a decorated Navy SEAL in front of a jury. Commander Mitchell, isn't it true that you barely knew Emma Lawson when you began your investigation? I've never spoken to her before that night. So you inserted yourself into the private affairs of strangers based on a single witnessed incident? I inserted myself into a situation where a woman was being beaten in her own front yard and no one else was helping. Isn't it possible you misinterpreted what you saw? That what you witnessed was a heated argument that got out of hand? I've spent 14 years in combat zones. I've seen violence in every form it takes. What I witnessed that night wasn't an argument. It was assault. Deliberate, brutal, and ongoing. You have quite a dramatic way of describing things, Commander. I describe things as they are. Your client beats his wife. He terrorizes her. He threatened to kill her. Those are facts, not drama. No further questions. Cole stepped down, his eyes finding Emma in the front row. She was pale, but steady. Her turn was coming. The prosecution calls Emma Lawson. The courtroom went silent. Emma rose slowly, honey handed to a victim's advocate who would hold her during testimony. She walked to the witness stand with measured steps, her eyes fixed straight ahead. She didn't look at Marcus. Not yet. Mrs. Lawson, please state your full name for the record. Emma Grace Lawson. And your relationship to the defendant? He is my husband. We've been married for 3 years. Mrs. Lawson, I'm going to ask you some difficult questions. Take your time. If you need a break, let us know. I understand. When did the abuse begin? Emma's hands clasped tightly in her lap. Our honeymoon. The 3rd night. He didn't like the way I'd spoken to a waiter at dinner. Said I was flirting. Said I'd embarrassed him. Her voice dropped. He hit me for the first time that night. Split my lip. Then he cried and apologized and said it would never happen again. But it did happen again. Yes, it always happened again. For the next 2 hours, Emma described her marriage in devastating detail. The escalation of violence, the isolation from friends and family, the threats against her life and the lives of people she loved. The way Marcus had systematically destroyed her sense of self until she believed she deserved everything he did to her. He told me I was worthless, stupid, ugly. He told me no one would ever believe me if I tried to report him. He told me he owned the police, the judges, everyone who was supposed to protect me. Emma's voice cracked. And for 3 years, I believed him, because every time I tried to get help, nothing happened. Every time I called the police, they left. Every time I went to the hospital, no one asked questions. What changed? Cole Mitchell. Emma finally looked across the courtroom, not at Marcus, but at Cole in the gallery. He saw what was happening. He didn't look away. He didn't make excuses. He didn't decide it wasn't his problem. Her eyes glistened. For the first time in 3 years, someone actually cared. The defense's cross-examination was brutal. Mrs. Lawson, isn't it true that you have a history of mental health issues? I have anxiety and depression because I was being abused. Isn't it true that you were fired from your teaching job for erratic behavior? I quit my job because Marcus demanded it. He didn't want me around other people, didn't want me to have any independence. Isn't it true that you had an affair with Commander Mitchell? Emma's face flushed with anger, real anger, not performance. No, Cole Mitchell saved my life. He treated me with more respect in 3 weeks than my husband showed me in 3 years. But you're living with him now, aren't you? I'm living in a safe house he helped arrange, because my husband hired men to kill me. That's quite an accusation. It's quite a fact. Victor Crane and Daniel Moss are both in federal custody. They've both confessed to being hired by Marcus to handle the problem. I was the problem. Hartford paused, recalibrating. Mrs. Lawson, you ask this jury to believe that your successful, respected husband was secretly a monster. But isn't it possible? Nothing about him was secret. Emma's voice rose. I screamed every night, and the neighbors closed their curtains. I showed up to emergency rooms with black eyes, and doctors looked the other way. I begged the police for help, and they told me it was a domestic matter. She turned to face the jury directly. You want to know if my husband is a monster? Ask the system that protected him. Ask the people who knew and did nothing. Ask yourselves why it took a stranger moving in across the street for anyone to finally care. The courtroom was absolutely silent. No further questions. Hartford sat down, visibly shaken. Closing arguments came on the third day. The prosecutor was methodical, devastating. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard testimony from medical professionals, law enforcement, and the victim herself. You've seen evidence of years of abuse, millions in hidden assets, and a conspiracy to commit murder when Mrs. Lawson tried to escape. He gestured toward Marcus. The defense wants you to believe this man is a victim, that his wife is a liar, that everyone, doctors, detectives, federal agents, a decorated Navy commander, all conspired against an innocent businessman. He shook his head. Ask yourselves, what's more likely, that all these people are lying, or that Marcus Lawson is exactly what the evidence shows him to be? An abuser, a criminal, and a man who believed his money and connections made him untouchable. The defense's closing was desperate. Reasonable doubt, Hartford repeated. That's all we ask. The prosecution has presented a compelling narrative. But narratives aren't proof. Emotions aren't evidence. He spread his hands. Marcus Lawson is not a perfect man. No one is. But being imperfect is not being criminal. Having arguments with your spouse is not being an abuser. Being accused is not being guilty. He turned to the jury. I ask you to do what the prosecution fears most. Think. Think about what you've actually heard. Think about what's been proven. And when you do, you'll find reasonable doubt. You'll find a man who deserves to walk free. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. 4 hours of waiting. 4 hours of pacing. 4 hours of wondering if the system would finally do what it should have done years ago. Cole sat in the hallway with Emma, Storm at their feet. What if they don't believe me? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. What if his lawyers convince them? What if... Then we keep fighting. Different court, different venue, different approach. Cole took her hand. But they believed you. I saw their faces when you testified. They believed every word. I can't go back to him. I can't... You won't. Whatever happens, you're never going back to that life. I promise you. Torres burst through the doors. They're back! The jury filed in. Emma gripped Cole's hand so tightly her knuckles went white. Members of the jury, have you reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. The 4 persons stood, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a firm voice. On the count of domestic assault in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Emma sobbed. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant guilty. Marcus's face went pale. On the count of money laundering, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of witness intimidation, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of obstruction of justice, we find the defendant guilty. 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 Marcus Lawson rose from his chair, face contorted with rage. This is insane! She's lying! They're all lying! Mr. Lawson, sit down. Judge Chen's voice was ice. You can't do this to me. Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are. The judge's eyes were merciless. You are now a convicted felon, and you will conduct yourself with respect in my courtroom, or I will add contempt charges to your sentence. Marcus was pulled back into his seat by his lawyers, still sputtering. Judge Chen turned to the jury. Thank you for your service. This court is adjourned until sentencing, which will occur in 2 weeks. The gavel fell. It was over. 3 years of terror. 3 years of silence. 3 years of believing that no one would ever help. Over. Emma collapsed against Cole, sobbing harder than she had since the night she'd first called him for help.
I can't believe it. I can't. It's real. Cole held her tight. It's finally real.
Storm pressed against their legs, tail wagging, sensing the shift in energy. In the gallery, Torres wiped tears from her own eyes. In the defendant's seat, Marcus Lawson stared at the table, his perfect world crumbling around him. And in Emma Lawson's heart, something that had been dead for 3 years finally began to breathe again. Hope. The sentencing hearing came 2 weeks after the verdict. Emma arrived at the courthouse with Cole beside her, Storm walking steadily at their heels. She was wearing the same blue dress from the trial. Her armor, she'd come to think of it. The dress she'd worn when she finally told her truth. "Are you ready?" Cole asked as they approached the entrance. "I've been ready for 3 years." Emma's voice was steady. "I just didn't know it." The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the gallery. Cameras waited outside. The whole country, it seemed, wanted to see how this story would end. Marcus Lawson was led in, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his designer suits. His hair was unkempt. His face was haggard. 2 weeks in federal custody had stripped away the polished image he'd spent decades constructing. He looked at Emma as he passed. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She met his eyes with a calm she hadn't felt in 3 years. And for the first time since their wedding day, Marcus Lawson looked afraid. "All rise." Judge Chen entered, her face unreadable, her presence commanding absolute silence. "Before I deliver the sentence, I will hear victim impact statements. Mrs. Lawson, you may proceed." Emma rose on steady legs. She walked to the podium, her hands trembling only slightly, her voice clear when she began to speak. "Your Honor, 3 years ago, I married a man I thought I loved. A man I thought loved me." She paused, gathering herself. "I was wrong." She turned to face Marcus directly. "You told me every day that I was worthless, that I was stupid, that no one would ever believe me if I tried to speak out against you. You beat me. You terrorized me. You made me believe that death was the only escape I would ever have." Her voice strengthened. "But you were wrong too, because I'm still here. I'm still standing. And today, I'm watching you face consequences you never believed would touch you." Emma turned back to the judge. "I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for justice. For myself. For Honey, the puppy you kicked and threatened to kill. For every woman who's been silenced by men like you. For every victim who was told that money and power make abuse acceptable." She drew a deep breath. "I want Marcus Lawson to spend the rest of his life knowing that he's not untouchable, that his money couldn't save him, that his connections couldn't protect him, that in the end, the truth was stronger than all his lies." Emma returned to her seat. Cole squeezed her hand. She had done it. She had faced the monster and spoken her truth. Now it was time for the monster to face his fate. Judge Chen reviewed her notes for a long moment. Then she looked at Marcus Lawson with eyes that held no mercy. "Mr. Lawson, you have been convicted of domestic assault, conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, witness intimidation, and obstruction of justice. These are not minor offenses. These are crimes that destroyed a life, corrupted a system, and demonstrated a pattern of behavior that cannot be tolerated in a civilized society." She folded her hands. "Your attorneys have asked for leniency. They've pointed to your business accomplishments, your charitable donations, your standing in the community." Her voice hardened. "But standing in the community does not excuse beating your wife. Business success does not justify terrorizing another human being. And charitable donations do not buy the right to abuse without consequence." Marcus's face contorted. "On the count of domestic assault in the first degree, I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison. Emma's breath caught. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, I sentence you to 20 years to run consecutively. Marcus grabbed his lawyer's arm. On the counts of money laundering, witness intimidation, and obstruction of justice, I sentence you to an additional 10 years, also consecutive. That's 45 years, Marcus's lawyer shot to his feet. Your Honor, that's essentially a life sentence. Yes, Mr. Hartford, it is. Judge Chen's voice was ice. Your client spent 3 years destroying a woman's life. He hired men to kill her when she tried to escape. He corrupted law enforcement to protect himself. 45 years is the minimum appropriate consequence for that pattern of behavior. We'll appeal. That is your right. But Mr. Lawson will remain in federal custody until any appeal is resolved. The judge turned to Marcus. Do you have anything to say before I finalize this sentence? Marcus rose slowly. For a moment, Emma thought she saw the old Marcus, the charming man who could talk his way out of anything, the man who had convinced her to marry him, the man who had made her believe the abuse was her fault. Your Honor, his voice was smooth, practiced. I want to apologize, to the court, to my wife. I made mistakes. I let stress and pressure turn me into someone I'm not. If you give me the chance, stop! Judge Chen's voice cut through his performance like a blade. Mr. Lawson, I have presided over hundreds of cases in my career. I have heard countless defendants claim they've changed, that they're sorry, that they deserve another chance. She leaned forward. Do you know how I identify the ones who are genuinely remorseful? Marcus was silent. They don't make excuses. They don't blame stress or pressure. They don't try to charm their way out of consequences. The judge's eyes were merciless. You are not sorry for what you did. You are sorry you got caught. And that is not remorse. That is self-pity. She struck her gavel. The sentence stands. Court is adjourned. Marcus Lawson was led away in handcuffs, his designer life reduced to a prison cell. He didn't look at Emma as he passed. He couldn't, because for the first time in his life, he was the one who was powerless. Outside the courthouse, the crowd was massive. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Protesters held signs supporting domestic violence survivors. Emma stood on the courthouse steps, Cole on one side, Torres on the other, and faced the sea of faces. Mrs. Lawson, how do you feel about the sentence? I feel... Emma paused, searching for the right words. I feel like I can finally breathe. For the first time in 3 years, I know that when I go to sleep tonight, he won't be there. He won't hurt me. He won't threaten me. He can't reach me anymore. What's next for you? Healing. Learning who I am when I'm not afraid. Helping other women who are still trapped in situations like mine. Emma's voice strengthened. No one should have to suffer in silence. No one should have to choose between staying alive and being believed. Do you have a message for other abuse survivors? Emma looked directly into the cameras. You are not alone. You are not weak. You are not worthless. The people who hurt you are lying when they tell you no one will believe you. They're lying when they say you deserve it. They're lying when they say there's no way out. Her eyes glistened with tears, but her voice didn't waver. There is a way out. It's hard. It's terrifying. It requires courage you don't think you have. But it exists. And when you're ready to take that step, there are people who will help you. People who will believe you. People who will stand beside you until you're free. She reached down and lifted Honey into her arms. I almost died. My dog almost died. But we're still here. We survived. And if we can survive, so can you. The interview made national news. Within 24 hours, domestic violence hotlines across the country reported a 300% increase in calls. Shelters received record donations. Police departments faced renewed scrutiny over how they handled abuse allegations. Emma Lawson had become a symbol, not of victimhood, but of survival. And she was just getting started. 3 months after the sentencing, Emma stood in front of a small building on the outskirts of Charlotte. The sign above the door read, "Storm's Haven." "Are you sure about this?" Cole stood beside her, Storm at his feet. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Storm's Haven was a shelter, not just for domestic violence survivors, but for their pets too. A place where women didn't have to choose between escaping abuse and abandoning the animals they loved. A place where healing could happen for everyone. Emma had used the money from her divorce settlement. Marcus's assets had been seized, but Emma was entitled to the portion that predated his criminal activity to fund the initial construction. Donations had poured in after her interview went viral. "You know this is going to be hard," Cole said. "Running a nonprofit, dealing with trauma every day, reliving your own experience through other women's stories." "I know." Emma turned to face him. "But hard isn't the same as impossible. And if I can help even one woman escape, if I can save even one family, then everything I went through had meaning." You don't have to justify your suffering by helping others. "I'm not justifying it. I'm transforming it." Emma smiled, a real smile, the kind she hadn't been able to produce for years. 3 years ago, I was a victim. Today, I'm a survivor. Tomorrow, I want to be a rescuer. The grand opening of Storm's Haven drew a crowd of supporters, survivors, and media. Torres spoke about the systemic failures that allowed abuse to continue unchecked. Cole spoke about the importance of bystanders who refused to look away. And Emma spoke about hope. "When I was trapped in that house, I stopped believing in rescue. I stopped believing in kindness. I stopped believing that anyone would ever care enough to help." Her voice carried across the crowd. "But I was wrong. Because one man, a stranger who owed me nothing, decided that my life mattered, that my pain mattered, that my dog mattered." She looked at Cole, standing at the edge of the crowd with Storm. He didn't rush in with violence. He didn't make promises he couldn't keep. He watched. He planned. He built a case that couldn't be ignored. And when the time was right, he helped me escape. Not just from my husband, but from the belief that I was worthless. Emma turned back to the crowd. "That's what Storm's Haven is about. Not just shelter, not just safety, but the message that every person who walks through our doors will hear: you matter. You are worthy of love. You deserve to be free." The crowd erupted in applause. Emma wiped tears from her eyes and stepped down from the podium. Cole was waiting for her. "That was incredible." "I was terrified." "I know. That's what made it incredible." Storm pushed his nose against Emma's hand. Honey, now a full-grown dog, bounded toward her from where the volunteer staff had been watching her. 2 dogs who had witnessed the worst of humanity. 2 dogs who had helped their humans survive. "What now?" Emma asked. "Now we go inside. We meet the first residents. We start the work we came here to do." "And after that?" Cole smiled. "After that, we keep going. One day at a time. One person at a time. Until we've helped as many people as we can." "That could take a lifetime." "I can think of worse ways to spend one." 1 year later, Storm's Haven had helped over 200 families escape abuse. The model, combining human and animal support services, had been replicated in 12 states. Legislation inspired by Emma's case had strengthened protections for domestic violence survivors nationwide. And Marcus Lawson remained in federal prison, his appeals denied, his money gone, his power reduced to nothing. Emma stood at the window of her office, watching families arrive at the shelter. A mother with 2 children and a cat. A teenager with a golden retriever. An elderly woman with a small terrier who hadn't stopped trembling since she'd been rescued. Every one of them had a story. Every one of them had survived something that should have destroyed them, and every one of them was going to get the help they needed. "You're thinking too loud." Cole entered with 2 cups of coffee, Storm padding behind him. "Just reflecting." Emma accepted the coffee. "1 year ago, I was still in that house, still believing I would never escape, still accepting that my life would end the way Marcus planned. And now? Now I wake up every morning knowing that what happened to me matters, that my pain had purpose, that I'm not just surviving, I'm actually living. That's a big change. The biggest." Emma turned to face him. "I never thanked you properly." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do. Because you didn't have to help me. You didn't have to get involved. You could have closed your curtains like everyone else. You could have decided it wasn't your problem. It was always my problem." Cole's voice was quiet but firm. "The moment I saw what he was doing to you, it became my problem. Because looking away isn't neutrality, it's complicity. Most people don't see it that way. Most people are wrong." Emma set down her coffee and crossed to him. "You saved my life, Cole Mitchell." "You saved yourself. I just opened the door." "That's not true, and you know it." "It's true enough." Cole met her eyes. "You're the one who had the courage to testify. You're the one who faced him in that courtroom. You're the one who built this place from nothing. I was just backup. The best backup anyone could ask for." "Well," a rare smile crossed Cole's face, "I do have extensive training in that area." Storm whined softly, and both of them looked down. The Belgian Malinois was graying at the muzzle now, slower than he'd been a year ago, but still alert, still watching, still protecting. Honey lay beside him, her golden fur pressed against his darker coat. "They're inseparable," Emma said softly. "So are we." She looked at him. "Are we?" "I think so." Cole's voice was careful. "If you want to be." "Cole." "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I know you've been through hell. I know trust doesn't come easy anymore, but I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. Whatever you need, however long it takes." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I'm broken." "You're healing." "I have nightmares." "So do I." "I don't know if I can ever." "You don't have to know right now." Cole took her hands. "All I'm asking is that you give us a chance. Give yourself a chance. See what happens when you let someone care about you without hurting you." "What if I mess it up?" "Then we figure it out together. That's what partners do." "Partners? If you'll have me." Emma stared at him. This man who had risked everything for a stranger, who had fought for her when no one else would, who had shown her that not all men were monsters. "I'll have you," she whispered. "Whatever that means. However it works out. I'll have you." Cole pulled her close. Storm's tail thumped against the floor. Honey yipped happily. And for the first time in 4 years, Emma Lawson felt something she'd forgotten existed. Home. The 5th anniversary of Storm's Haven was celebrated with a massive community event. Over 500 families had been helped. The model had expanded to 32 states. Emma had testified before Congress about domestic violence reform, and the shelter had become a beacon of hope for survivors across the country. Emma stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd, survivors, supporters, staff members, volunteers. Cole stood at the back, Storm at his feet, watching with quiet pride. 5 years ago, Emma began, I was a woman without hope, I believed I was worthless. I believed I would die in that house. I believed that no one would ever care enough to help. She smiled, the smile of a woman who had walked through fire and emerged transformed. I was wrong about all of it. Because one man refused to look away. Because one dog taught me that loyalty exists. Because one detective wouldn't give up. Because all of you, every single person in this room, believed that survivors deserved better. Her voice strengthened. Storm's Haven isn't just a shelter. It's a promise. A promise that no one has to suffer alone. A promise that there's always a way out. A promise that every life, human and animal, has value. She looked at Cole. 5 years ago, I asked a stranger why he was helping me. He said it was because looking away isn't neutrality. It's complicity. Those words changed my life. They became the foundation of everything we've built here. Emma turned back to the crowd. So I want to leave you with a challenge. Don't look away. When you see someone suffering, don't assume someone else will help. Don't tell yourself it's not your problem. Don't close your curtains and pretend you didn't see. Her voice rose. Be the person who notices. Be the person who acts. Be the person who refuses to accept that abuse is just a family matter. Because every person who's ever escaped, every woman, every child, every pet, did so because someone cared enough to intervene. Emma stepped back from the podium. Thank you for being those people. Thank you for believing in this mission. And thank you for showing me that even in the darkest times, there is always light. The crowd erupted in applause, but Emma wasn't looking at them. She was looking at Cole. He nodded once, a gesture that said everything words couldn't. They had done this together. They had built something that would outlast them both. And they had proven that one person who refused to look away, could change everything. That evening, Cole and Emma sat together on the porch of the small house they now shared. Storm lay at their feet, his breathing slow and peaceful. Honey was curled against his side, exactly where she'd been for 5 years. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't moved into that neighborhood? Emma asked quietly. Sometimes. Where would I be? I don't think about that. Cole took her hand. I think about where you are now, what you've built, who you've become. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have. It just would have taken longer. You always say that. Because it's true. You were always strong, Emma. Marcus just made you forget. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I love you. Have I told you that lately? This morning, and last night, and approximately 47 times yesterday. That doesn't sound like enough. It's more than enough. Cole kissed the top of her head. It's everything. They sat in silence, watching the sunset. Two broken people who had found healing in each other. Storm lifted his head suddenly, ears pricking. A car was pulling up the driveway. Torres emerged, waving. Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. What kind of situation? Cole was already on his feet. The good kind, Torres smiled. Governor just signed the bill. Comprehensive domestic violence reform. Mandatory reporting. Increased funding for shelters. Everything we've been fighting for. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. It passed? It passed. And they're calling it the Emma Lawson Act. Tears streamed down Emma's face. I can't. You don't have to say anything. Torres crossed to her and pulled her into a hug. You've already said everything that matters. Now it's law. Cole wrapped his arms around both of them. Storm pressed against their legs. And in that moment, everything they'd suffered, every bruise, every nightmare, every moment of terror, was transformed into something beautiful, something lasting, something that would protect countless others for generations to come. The world didn't become perfect that night. There would always be men like Marcus Lawson, men who believed power meant ownership, who thought money could buy silence, who used love as a weapon. But there would also always be people who refused to look away, people who understood that rescue wasn't a single act, but a commitment. People who knew that sometimes the greatest courage isn't fighting the enemy, it's protecting the innocent. Sometimes miracles don't come as thunder or fire from the sky. They come quietly, through a neighbor who noticed, a soldier who cared, a detective who wouldn't give up, and a woman who found the courage to speak. God doesn't promise us a world without cruelty, but He promises that when we choose courage over silence, when we stand with the powerless against the powerful, when we shine light into the darkest corners, we are never truly alone. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage and quiet miracles. And remember, if you see something wrong, don't look away. Your action might be the rescue someone has been praying for. You matter, your voice matters, and silence is never neutral. God bless you and your family with protection, peace, and the courage to stand for those who cannot stand alone. Because in the end, we are not saved by looking away. We are saved by looking toward each other. The end.